Thank you for being here this morning. I would like to present our work. I am Stefano Cucchi. I am a musician based on Milan. I'm basically a synth programmer, synth player, and a sound designer. My brother, Daniele Cucchi, is an engineer, electronic engineer with strong knowledge in signal processing. Maybe I need him for the formulas. I'm not so good in math as an engineer because I am primarily a pianist. We started with the idea of a new chorus, we don't consider the chorus only the strict meaning of chorus, but also a signal using for modulating parameters of the sound. That is to say, volume, panning, the speed of reading some audio files, the intonation of oscillator. And we thought to start not with the opcode present in C sound. We know that in C sound there are a lot of opcode generating noises. If we think, for example, jitter. In jitter we have three important parameters: the KCPS mean, KCPS max, that determine the spectral density of the noise, and then kappa amp, that determines the amplitude distribution of the noise. Two are the important parameters of every kind of noise: the spectral density and the amplitude distribution. We decided to start with a simple noise with one pole filter. The X input of the system is a random noise, which have a uniform distribution of amplitude between minimum and maximum. What is important in this formula is the parameter beta. Beta determines the behavior of the system. If beta is going toward 0, there are no correlation between subsequent sample. If beta is going toward 1, there are more correlation between subsequent samples, subsequent values. And so we have a behavior more similar to a random walk. One thing is important to say: we decided to work with another framework, who is Octave. Octave is a free platform for mathematics. It's a clone of MATLAB, but Octave is completely free and licensed under new license. We decided to work on Octave because this program gives us a complete control of all the system. We can manage large amount of data, generate large amount of data, generate graphics, and control very deeply the behavior of the system. Now you can see a simple code in MATLAB generating some random noise. We have the code. If we launch the program, we have a simple noise. Here, the behavior in the time, the subsequent values. In the histogram, the single values, the probability of the single values. We did some experiment with random noise with no control, because with random noise, with a filter with one pole, we have no control of the amplitude distribution of the noise. Here you can hear some example. In this example, the parameter beta is towards 0. You can hear almost nothing as effect, because the samples are jumping up and down, maybe little side bends, but almost nothing. If you now there is an example with beta going towards 1. You notice also by ears that you have no control of the amplitude distribution. With beta going toward 0, you see a lot of jumps of samples. The sound that you have heard are generated by a simple code in inch sound, because in MATLAB you generate a list of values that are read by sound by opcode read kappa. With beta going toward 1, you see that the behavior is more similar to a random walk. The effect is audible. There is the problem of the fact that you don't have control of the amplitude distribution of the samples. In this graphic you can see that the samples are high and then come down. In the audio example, the sample started near 0 and then deviated on higher values. So the thing that we tried to do was to impose a threshold to the values. A simple threshold. When a sample reaches the threshold, it stops at the threshold. We see in these figures, in the histogram, we see a lot of samples near the threshold below, the threshold up. The behavior in the time has some problem visually. We don't know if sonically there will be some artifact in the sound. You see the samples that are reaching the threshold and stop. We thought about maybe if the threshold is reached, you have some sample on the threshold, maybe there could be some problem with the sound, no modulation, the modulation stop. So we decided to implement in this code a sort of bounce back in the values. If you want to know exactly how it works, the bounce back, you have to ask to an engineer. It's better to ask to him. The idea was when a sample reaches the threshold, the sample bounce back, the values bounce back, not equally bounce back. If there's an equal bounce back for all the samples, we have all the bounce back in the same value, and the histogram was not so linear. So we decided to bounce back equally to the part exceeding the threshold. I can launch the program. You can see that here we have a random walk. The graphic looks nice. We don't have the problem of sample reaching and staying at the threshold. And we have, in this case, we haven't generated so much sample for being faster for generating, but the system obviously permits to insert different seeds. If I change the seeds, I have different distribution of values. I'll try one other. Sorry. Then we we started to think about sound. Okay, the graphic. Maybe there are some problem with a simple threshold. Maybe there are no problem with simple threshold. Try. We did some simple program in Sound. Now I have rendered the file and keep it for keeping it clear into a DAW. It's more simple. Now you hear some files, some audio files that are a sinusoid with related harmonics, in which maybe, but we are not sure, there is some problem in the sound, some artifact in the sound. If you noticed, when the values reach the threshold, the sound stopped. It's very subtle. Maybe it's not a problem in musical application, but maybe it could be a problem. I have this file, but happened many times. There will maybe another problem with interaction between more sinusoid. In the case of the sinusoid are in opposition of file, there can occur cancellation of phase, so lack of the sound. In this example, you can hear that the sound seems to disappear when the samples are reaching and remaining at the threshold. Three times. At the very beginning one. It's more evident. It was a choice to choose a sinusoid with related harmonics with the first study. After then we came also using some musical, or it's better to say sonical material to test the file. Then we did also some comparison between the two methods of threshold, the simple threshold, the bounce back threshold. For first thing, we created a file with a sample only on the values of saturation. The modulation between the two files is stopped. I would like you to notice the beating of the harmonic, the superior harmonic. Ta 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 ta. This is the rhythm. Maybe it's a little annoying, but it's useful to understand. If I use the simple threshold at the very beginning of the file, the values reaches the threshold, remain at the threshold, and you can hear this beating. Maybe it's not unmusical, maybe it's not unpleasant, but it's important to notice this thing. At the very beginning. So we tried with bounce back. Maybe it seems more natural. Even if the sound is not so pleasant, maybe for it's simply sinusoidal oscillators. The second part of the work was to think about musical aspect and to understand, to trial and errors. We moved forward to sound coming back to Octave to generate different kind of sequences for testing, for tuning in the hypothesis of a new chorus of code. But maybe we started with the idea of chorus, but the idea is maybe we are going toward a modulation signal, custom modulation signal. We don't know, also we don't know how to call him. We decided to use these values as a speed playback of a file, but these values are not, we cannot use these values as they are for a problem. I use the opcode dskin, which need the speed of the file for being controlled. So I have to take the different with the subsequent samples to obtain the speed for playing back the files. We decided to try these sequences with three kind of musical or sonical material. One is a voice, the well-known the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. One is a FM band, and another sound is a rhythmic material. Rhythmic material like generated in the past years, sound that I've generated in G-Sound in the past years, for also controlling how much the values are to be multiplied for a good effect, without losing, if you don't want, the synchronicity of playback. We found that almost impossible for the distribution of the speed, as you can see in the histogram. It's almost impossible to lose the synchronicity of the file. Then I made a loop with the quick brown fox. I have listened to these phrases so many times in these weeks.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the...
Now you can, you can hear 4 instances of chorus, or maybe 3 instances of chorus. The original 3 instances of chorus, one with light chorus. I call it chorus. I know it's not the exact technical chorus, but three modulated signal.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox.
You can hear the voice pitched very high and then coming down to very down, and always in synchronicity. Because it's not impulsive material. But the good thing is that we don't hear, even in my studio, I have a studio recording, I don't hear artifacts in the file. Also controlling the waveform with ozone, plugins used for mastering, for controlling unwanted noise, unwanted clipping. The sound was always very, very clear, very precise. Thank you to the algorithm, not thank you to the musician, obviously.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox.
For my work, in electronic installation, I work with hexaphonie, octaphonie, etc. I tried in my studio where I have hexaphonie, quadriphonia with also two speakers on the ceiling, and I tried some effect, and it sounded very good. Maybe I have made for myself, but the effect is very nice. Different speed, always coming together. Then I tried also with a FM band, simple FM band. Simple of FM made in G-Sound. There are some modulation due to the index of modulation. And then I made a file with original plus one chorus, chorus 1, original chorus 1, chorus 2, chorus 3. It was a choice to choose sonic material that weren't not pleasant at the origin. The sound band FM is not so good. But I wanted to hear the effect even was able to bring some life to the sample. The last example, it's impulsive material, G-Sound. No modulation. I think the sound is pretty good with a little modulation, very little modulation, very little modulation. More modulation. You can hear the repetition. Maybe it's a problem. Maybe for a future chorus opcode we have to consider also the material on which we want to use this sort of modulation. And then a lot of modulation. I liked very much this sound with a lot of modulation. Maybe the fine-tuning is not it's important in some aspect, but maybe the file with the deviation that you ever heard at the very beginning of my speech, maybe with other material could bring to something interesting. For me, that's all.
Okay.
If you have some